Well, that was exciting. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live session. I'm Bill Noto. I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Stephan Goldberg, Field CTO from Claroty, and we're going to talk about exposure management today. Thanks for being here with us. Stephan, thanks for joining me. Hopefully
Thank you, Bill, for having me.
Okay, great. So, hey, congratulations on the launch of the exposure management platform, Stephan. Let's start with this 38% finding that Joel should flash up on the screen. Can you share what this statistic means? 38% of the riskiest cyber-physical systems are overlooked by traditional vulnerability management approaches. Can you hear me okay?
So I did not hear the question.
Okay.
Not so well. I guess you asked me.
I'm gonna Slack the question to you because I can hear you perfectly, and just asking you about that 38% statistic.
All right, the 38% statistic, actually it's an interesting point and also has a lot to do with how we differentiate vulnerability management from exposure management. Out of the vast amount of assets that we monitor as part of our xDome platform solution, we've recognized that approximately a quarter of them have a vulnerability with a CVSS score associated to them. When you ask yourself, is that my problem? And traditional vulnerability management does define that as the problem. Usually people go and start dealing with the vulnerabilities with the highest vulnerability scores, aka the CVSS or EPSS in a more advanced environment. What we did, we took the actual amount of KEVs, known exploited vulnerabilities, the ones that are actually being exploited in the wild, and we asked the question, how many of these have the CVSS score higher than 9.0 that the traditional vulnerability management programs will address? And what we found is approximately a half, 50% of the assets of the cyber-physical systems that have a known associated exposure or vulnerability that is exploited in the wild does not have a critical or high CVSS score attached to it. So we arrived to the conclusion that approximately 38 of the known exploited vulnerabilities that are being exploited by bad actors in the wild against cyber-physical systems are not being targeted or not being scoped within the traditional vulnerability management programs. And that allowed us to come to the very obvious conclusion that we need to recalculate the way exposures and vulnerabilities are being treated in the context of CPS.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And I'm going to type my question to you in that other thread, just in case you can't hear me very well. I can hear you perfectly, by the way. But can you talk a little bit about exposure management sort of for traditional enterprise IT and exposure management for cyber-physical systems and how it's different for cyber-physical systems?
Yes, absolutely. So first, I think we need to state what do we call exposure management? From vulnerability management to exposure management is we wanted to evolve from long laundry lists of items that basically they scope anything under the sun or in the universe to succinct lists of action items that can actually move the needle, can actually reduce risk for an organization. That is the tagline. On the how, that is the what. On the how, we decided to adhere and align around the Gartner CTAM framework, Continuous Threat and Exposure Management Framework. The ones that are not familiar with the framework, we invite you to Google it and read about the framework and the essentials online and any available Gartner resource. But basically, the framework has 5 phases: discover, or scope, discover, prioritize on the know side, or the scoping and discovery side, and then validate and remediate on the action side. We did not invent exposure management. We did not invent CTEM. As a matter of fact, when we started interviewing our customers around how they manage vulnerabilities and exposures for their OT, IoT, cyber physical systems, and like the unmanaged environment, we found out that a lot of them do have an active exposure management program, but they scoped out the cyber physical systems that they own, whether it's a traditional manufacturing facility, they scoped out the OT environment, the manufacturing environment, or in a more converged environment, like in a hospital or a commercial building, we found out that the building automation systems, that the medical devices are scoped out of the traditional exposure management program. And the reason for that, again, the salient reasons for that are these differences. The things that make CPS and unmanaged XIoT assets different from the traditional IT. First and foremost, in terms of business impact, on the IT side, you have confidentiality, integrity, availability. On the OT side, you have completely different drivers around safety and operational continuity and efficiency. Second, on the IT side, you usually have a tech stack that allows you to automate a lot of things, automate discovery, automate the discovery of installed applications and patches, and automate the push of remediations, automation of remediations, or what's known today as remediation ops. For cyber physical systems that do not carry these agents, are lacking the automation, a lot of it by design due to the sensitive nature and the build that these devices come with from the manufacturers, a different system, different process, different technology, and different people are needed. And our promise with xDome Exposure Management is basically bridge that gap. Take the existing framework, existing effective framework from the IT, and translate that, or the principle, allow the principles to be enabled on cyber physical systems via our technology.
Okay, that's so helpful. So, like, do you want to just comment a little bit about Claroty's solution for exposure management? Like, in what products do we find these capabilities? What are we doing to effectively make it real, right? What makes Claroty's exposure management solution sort of for CPS unique?
Absolutely. So I will try not to do it like a demo without a demo, but maybe 4 salient points, 4 most important takeaways of the audience here to go and look out in solutions in the space, including our own one, which is xDome Exposure Management as the module. The first one is to be aware of the business context. As the first step of CTEM suggests, the scoping step, you need to be able to scope in an efficient way the assets and exposures that you're going to remediate as part of the iterative process of that framework. As such, is not only identifying like the identities of the assets. That is what tools in the IoT space are doing for more than a decade today, is identifying the purpose of these tools. Let me give you an example. A PLC can be used to progress a conveyor. It can be used to move a robotic arm, or it can be used to control a safety system of a door in a commercial building. The purpose of that same device with the same identity very much differentiates its business impact and the context of that device from a risk perspective, as well as its business functionality and scope. So that is the first thing you need to look out for, a system that can read that context from the environment, whether to intake it in a manual process from the human operator of the system or integrate with your manufacturing execution system or other system with a system of record that has a mapping of assets to their purposes. And that is item number 1, that maps to scope. Most salient point on discover, which is the second phase, I would say, and again, some of it is not novel because platforms that claim to secure IoT started with visibility, but everyone today in 2024 should ask themselves whether that visibility is attainable in a safe and efficient manner. Safe and efficient. That is the name of the game. We decided to switch the way we approach asset discovery, and today Claroty leads in every environment that we find it's a good fit with our integration first, active first, project file first approach. All the techniques that our platform xDome has to offer that can gain the deepest, most comprehensive asset discovery, asset visibility into a system without any configuration changes or change control or heavy lift work against the infrastructure itself, like span ports, port mirrors, these kind of things. That is what is being deployed first. And we find when we work with global organizations, when you take this approach first, you gain complete asset discovery, complete asset visibility within weeks versus months. It's not that we're advertising or suggesting avoiding the traditional beloved span port. That should come at the end, because we do need to see what these devices actually do on the network, and to complete a lot about the behavioral analysis and communication patterns of these assets from these port mirrors and the traffic itself. But what can be done in an efficient way should be done in an efficient way. The second piece is safe. So active, we did not invent active. Active was and still is employed on the IT side of the house by many tools. But if you're using an active IT discovery method that was built to discover laptops, phones, managed assets in an OT or cyber physical system environment, you're just jeopardizing the business. Bad things can happen. Bad things are happening for organizations that are using that. So safe and efficient. That would be my takeaway. Yeah. Any thoughts on your end, Bill?
No, I mean, I think that's great. I think what we've done with sort of comprehensive suite of discovery techniques, purpose-built for OT, is very compelling. And I'm proud to work at a company that has the best discovery of the players in the space. Yeah, I hope you can hear me okay now, Stephan.
The following, and again, this is the beginning of the journey, the scoping and discovery, ending the journey with prioritize, validate, and mobilize. I would say that whatever technology you choose to support your process, you need to make sure that piece of tech does not only assess assets for vulnerabilities, but also has very tangible steps to reduce and remediate that risk. Confirm vulnerabilities. Not saying, I think there is a vulnerability associated to this medical asset or to this PLC, but really positively know, based on SBOM information, based on deeper insight around the build and the installed applications of the device that one can get via alliances, dedicated research, and other techniques. So positive confirmation of vulnerabilities and tangible steps to remediate that risk, to reduce it. Validated patching information, validated hardening information from the OEMs, or validated controls, ACLs, access control lists, that can be applied to an asset without actually touching it, to a port or to a firewall that these assets uses to traverse the network. That is very important. I think that if I need to summarize it in one sentence, the name of the game around CPS security, IoT security, transition from knowing to doing, from visibility to reducing risk. The name of the game is reducing risk, and whatever technology you choose to power your exposure management program for cyber physical systems, you need to make sure that piece of tech can actually enable you to reduce risk, not only to surface it.
Yep. That's a great point. And Stephan, I don't know if you can see the question that came in. Someone named Lex asked, how does asset discovery for IT negatively affect OT discovery? You could take it, or I could take it.
If you take a Delta V PLC that was built before 2014 and you run a ping sweep against it, or a port scan against it with more than 20 queries in less than a minute, it will freeze. Just one example. And there are like plenty. It's not specific to Delta V or not specific to a PLC. There are examples around infusion pumps. There are examples around security cameras. But the more intrusive scans like Nmap and the subset of active scans that are used by Nmap were built to be ran against a laptop or a multifunctional heavy on the compute side device like a laptop are irrelevant or even dangerous when ran against not that heavy on the compute side piece of equipment like a programmable line controller or a camera or a physical access controller for a door, etc., etc.
Okay, I think that's a great example, and I'll just add one more thing, which is that a lot of OT equipment, Lex, is installed for a long time. So in traditional IT environments, a lot of hardware, firewalls, switches, and so on turns over every few years. Companies typically just replace it. The useful life is maybe 5 years. But in traditional cyber physical systems like OT environments, those things don't change much. So, someone buys an industrial asset like a wind turbine or a manufacturing plant, and they often expect the equipment to last for 20 or 30 years. It's like part of the big industrial investment. And so you just have a lot. I mean, we always talk about legacy technologies and the challenges they present, but in OT, it's just exacerbated by the fact that it's so old. So there's equipment that's so old that was sort of never designed to withstand the kind of Nmap report scanning that Stephan described. And so you need to use a solution purpose-built for those environments that, and there are those exist. So including ours. So, hey, this has been really great, Stephan. Thank you for the question, Lex. We're going to wrap things up. And I would just encourage folks, if you're interested to learn more about exposure management and about our solution for exposure management, you can click the short URL that Adam posted in the comments. I personally vouch for the URL. It just has, and he's sharing it on the screen too. You can copy and paste it from the comments though. Thank you all for your time and for joining us here in this session. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Stephan.
Thank you.